A special edition of the NewsX Business World panels on the Indian economy. We have been in conversation throughout the lockdown and after with some of the top corporate voices, entrepreneurs and others on, of course, the state of the current Indian economy and how to revive it, get growth back on track. That's going to be the subject matter of our discussion today as well. As always, we have a special panel joining us. We have with us today Mehak Hemnani, life coach, benevolent business practitioner, energy healer, and also founder of Your Guide to You. We have Petal Chandok joining us today. She's partner at Trust Legal. Subodh Narayan Agarwal, chairman at Euromax Capital, and Irene Systems is with us as well. And Sharad Bhatt, CFO, EOLstocks.in, completes the panel. As always, we are happy to have Dr. Anurag Patra with us, chairman and editor-in-chief of Business World and Exchange from Media Group. Welcome all of you, and thank you so much for being with us today. Ms. Hemnani, let me begin with you first, on how you've really seen the hit that the Indian economy has taken. How much of aid really was the financial stimulus package announced at the start by the government, and what really more needs to be done for the Indian economy to bounce back, to revive, to get growth back on track?
Wow, that was some question. I was waiting, when will that question end? So one of the things is that everyone, whether it's the Indian economy, the governments, the world economy, and the people in the world are looking at is going or bouncing back. What if we don't have to bounce back? What if we have to create a brand new world? What if this was a time to restructure and reinvent everything that is known as economy and that is known as business till today? Because what was functioning earlier and working earlier will not work now. The world is new. It's time for us to, refresh everything, go back to basics and start building anew.
Okay, Mac, that's a very philosophical take on business. Yeah. You're right. Me and Uday were hosting a show together, and we said, why should there should be a tunnel? We use the metaphor light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe the tunnel will never end. Maybe there's no tunnel. So you have to find the light yourself. So you're right. If I had to philosophically build on your answer, you're basically saying there is a new abnormal or a new normal. There's a new world. We need to calibrate for it. And as I said on the show earlier, that, pandemic has shown us 5 broad things in my view. One is less is more. Second, never say never. Third, for entrepreneurs, for the first time, cost has to be less than revenue. Fourth is very important, is reskilling. You need to add a new domain. And fifth is saving. An Indian always saves for the rainy day. I think the rainy day has lasted a long time, and Indians in the last 6 months have saved. So there is a new abnormal there. Let me bring in Mr. Subodh Narayan Agarwal at this point. Mr. Agarwal, you have a 360-degree view of business. You do business globally. You raise capital for others, and you have your own company, BioCube. Tell us, how have been the last 180 days for you, and how do you see the business and economy going forward?
You see, I would. It's a very interesting way you have put it, and as Mehak put it in a very nice, beautiful way. But I will be more brutal. And personally, this has been the best 6 months of my life because I have been at home. I've never stayed so long at home, and working from home, convenient, and there's hardly any work to be done. Having said that, you see, I will go back to the original question where you were saying, how does it impact Indian economy and what they should do? Unlike 2008, where Indian economy was isolated from the global crash, this time it is not the case. This time's problem is a global phenomenon, and India is going to be as much affected by it, if not more, than the rest of the world. Why I say if not more? Because a lot of Western countries, or even countries like China, which we don't like today, have a lot of substance and a lot of basic systems to support the people. The stimuluses are huge. But when you look at a country like India, neither we can afford to do that, nor we have that capability. So it's going to be a very big challenge for countries like India to emerge out of that. And the bigger problem is going to be, you see, in my estimate, at least 15 to 20% companies are going to go bust, out of business globally, which is going to create, and a lot of companies will have a growth problem. And this is today. But if this pandemic continues and have a second resurgence, it could become even bigger. In such a scenario, what is going to be very critical is how do people survive, and the job creation or unemployment. I think the unemployment is going to reach to a level that it will increase the crime to another level. So we have to think of businesses where, or the governments need to think, where you can control the crime, create new opportunities, create new jobs. And one of the biggest ways is going to be digital in that, and infrastructure. So the governments will have to do a lot of investment into infrastructure to create jobs, and the people have to come out with innovations and new ideas and new technologies. So when you said what to have done in 6 months, which is what we tried to do, and we have this software product company which we were focused on, and we have taken it to another level, where we have come out with this unique product, which is going to be very big, helpful into the securities all over the world. And I think it's going to be a big challenge. It's not going to be a simple recovery path.
You're absolutely right. We still don't know the end date of the pandemic. There's a variable. We keep asking, when will the economy come back? And the best answer I've got on the show is 6 months after the pandemic goes away. Because you can say 12 months, but what is the reference point of the 12 months? From when 12 months? I mean, it's a guess at best. So you're absolutely, and you're right. Technology has become a driver from being an enabler. Yeah. And really all businesses have to imagine themselves as technology businesses, and the immersion of technology. And we'll talk to you about BioCube a little later. Let me bring in Petal Chandiok, who's a partner at Trust Legal. Petal, litigation has gone up overall. Commercial disputes have grown in the last 6 months. Credit has become an issue. We know there are creditors, but we don't know the quality of creditors because everyone is holding on to cash. So tell us, what is the kind of, if the business world is changing, do you think legal services are also kind of changing to keep up with the new abnormal? Petal Chandiok?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Batra, if I would put it this way, that to take it from where the economy is, getting affected globally, and how that is also affecting our sector, which is legal. I think right now we are at a stage where it is a little more balanced, where there are a lot of disputes, like you rightly put it. There are a lot of commercial disputes that are coming in, a lot of domestic violence issues, a lot of such credit-related, recovery-related issues which have erupted. At the same time, even though the judiciary has really put in a lot of effort, to transitioning into a virtual mode of, hearing matters and taking up legal issues, taking up legal matters on a daily basis. But yes, there has been a sort of, I think, a slowdown, or I would say there has been our regular matters, which we usually call are something which have taken a hit. Having said that, I feel maybe from now, maybe in the next quarter, I think legal sector would be one which will, I think, really benefit out of the situation that we are in right now. And to go on to what you really asked, that how is it that we are really coping, or how is it that we are really taking, this entire change, or this entire new, scenario, new world that we are in. I believe the most important aspect that came into our lives was doing everything digitally, because otherwise, when we look at, globally, when we look at other courts, in international setups, they're all very digital. However, in India, it's all very, manual. Everything is so manual. We do filings manually, we go to courts, etc. So now all of that has really transited, and that has given us, I think, a lot of time to be able to, evolve into other things, like, maybe business generation, maybe.
So virtual hearings have obviously streamlined the process in
yes.
the industry, have made it very efficient, you believe?
Yes. It has made it very efficient. The filing has become efficient. The court proceedings have become much more efficient. Of course, there are certain matters where we still go for physical court. I was yesterday in High Court, but virtual courts are much more efficient, and they have really saved a lot of time of counsels, who would sit in the courts and wait for hours for a matter to come. So yes, I think that is something that
do you find arguing in front of a virtual courts better, worse, or it is right now your compulsion, so you got to go make the best of what you have? If you had a choice to tomorrow have a virtual court vis-a-vis an online court, what would you prefer? You don't have to wait for parking. You don't have to jostle around the High Court. It saves time on travel. You don't have to wait in queue. So tell me, if you had a choice, would you still prefer a virtual hearing?
So that will completely depend on the kind of matter that I'm doing. If it is a matter where extensive arguments have to be extended before the court, then we would prefer having it physically before the bench to be able to express our arguments. However, the kind of matters that we are regularly having right now, we are preferring virtual. In fact, nowadays, when we are also filing matters, we are giving options between virtual and physical, and we are mostly opting for virtual hearings.
Okay.
You're saying they are effective, they work for now.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, let's bring in Sharad Bhatt at this point. Sharad, come in, of course, on your take on the current state of the Indian economy, how you've seen it affect your venture, your sector, and where you really see things going from now.
Yeah, so thanks a lot. Very, very interesting takes, starting from Mehak and then Dr. Batra, Mr. Subodh and Peter. And, I would just like to say that we are that digital, what we call to say digital natives. We are into the B2B e-commerce space. And fortunately for us, I'll restrict my responses to the world which I know, which is the e-commerce and more specifically the electronics and the cell phones. So we are a platform for delivering those devices, a B2B. And what we have seen, fortunately for us, we are in that small 10%, segment where our business hasn't been impacted to the extent where, the rest of the 90% have. And honestly speaking, the advent of e-education and the faster adoption of the businesses of the tech platforms is actually resulting in growth for us. So we consider ourselves into a very, very lucky segment at this point of time. As far as the economic stimulus is concerned, we believe that some elements of it, like the collateral-free loans, like the marketplace for businesses, like another thing was the distinction or the definition of an MSME. Those are the things which are going to impact us, not in the short run, but we believe in the midterm and the long run, we are going to be benefited. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm a little happy in the sense that we are doing well. At the same time, we cannot be disconnected or disjointed from the macroeconomic environment where the demand is in contraction. So that remains a worry. But we believe that at least the electronics, cell phones and electronics segment, which has moved from a discretionary spend to a mandatory spend, is something which is going to help us in the short and as well as the long run.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sharad. I want to ask you, again, I want to understand from you, the Prime Minister over the last 4.5 months has been talking about being Atmanirbhar. It is talking about, shunning a certain country and its brands, right? The government has taken steps to ban apps from China. Let me take the name. Now, do you see a drop in the sales of Chinese cell phones, Chinese brands, which have become a household name? Give us some data on that.
Yeah, sure. So, I think this is the interesting part that what exactly do we call as the Chinese phone, right? If you just take from the manufacturing perspective, all the top so-called the Chinese brands like Vivo, Oppo, and even Mi are aggressively expanding their production capacities to the extent, each one of them have a capacity of, I guess, Mi is expanding it to 60 million, Vivo is at 50, and Oppo is at 100. So we see a collective production capacity of around 160 million devices a year. And of course, the brands are owned by the Chinese, but all the production is happening in India. And we believe that that trend is going to accelerate now with the, all these geopolitical developments which we see. So the brands and names are owned by the Chinese, but all the production is happening in India. And that's why you'll see that the supply side.
Who owns the businesses?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
The
So
Chinese
on that
own
part, we are
businesses.
clear. So the China, so manufacturing in India, but brands owned by the Chinese, I guess there hasn't been a very significant drop as far as the demand is concerned.
Okay.
So yeah, so of course there is a shift towards Samsung, and those are non-Chinese brands, but overall we see a little impact on the demand or the supply.
Do you believe, Sharad, that the sort of silver lining in this crisis has come for digital ventures? Like yours, companies that do have some sort of hint of digital in them have managed to survive the onslaught better than others.
Yeah, I would say that, as I said, this is just a stroke of luck. We believe, of course, we are in a good space right now, but doesn't necessarily mean that we are completely out of that survival risk. The availability of the finance is still an issue despite the claims. I believe the last mile delivery and logistics part in India has to go a long way. We continue to build this space. We continue to build on those aspects, and for that, the finance is absolutely essential. The equity part as well as the debt part. Unfortunately, these are the things over which we do not really have much control. And I'll just phrase that in a little interesting part that so 5 CR worth of transaction are happening on our platform every month. Can I get a 10% debt as a working capital from any bank? As of now, the answer is no. Right. So I guess
kind of volume.
On a volume.
That's sad. And cost of capital and availability of capital have propelled Chinese companies and other companies to where they're, because capital is like a lift. Either you can walk up 25 floors, or you can take the lift. The choice is yours. The lift may need investments, and that's where the capital comes in. Meg, let me again bring back the focus to a philosophical issue. At the end of the day, an entrepreneur is on his or her own. He or she is expected to look after 100, 200, 300 colleagues, employees, team members. But what about personal care? For the first time, the mental well-being of oneself as a leader and your colleagues who you work with, your team members, your community, has come to the focus. For the first time, we started to discuss mental health in a big way. Do you think this trend will continue, and companies will invest in the happiness of their employees, the well-being of their employees?
So the mindset of the
technology,
people.
do you think the technology is helping or harming? Because we are spending obnoxious time on our screens. We are screenagers. We may not be teenagers.
Yeah.
We're all screenagers. So, tell us, what's your point of view on this?
So the mindset of the people at large has been forced to change. It's not like you have choice. You have to have digital. You have to be present with technology. You have to, otherwise you'll be obsolete. Like the old people also are using technology today. The biggest advantage that the industry that I work with, we had, was that we already were tech savvy compared to like what Subodhji said, that industries and all, we need to digitize, we need to enhance our digital infrastructure. So we were already way ahead of what the world, not only India, but what the world was at. We were doing Zoom meetings since 4 years. It was not new for us to have online sessions and online programs. Only few of our programs were not online, they all shifted online. So we had benefit of that moment when though nothing else was working, our business was still working. Yeah. So I would like, when we say individually, each person has to now start beginning to see how he can exponentialize or shift his own mindset. and start thinking from a futuristic approach that what the future requires of me, not what I need now for survival. We function from monthly budget, that this month I need this and I have to look at only this. What if we can look at what do I need 2 years from now? What do I need 1 year from now, and start making myself, equipped with all of that. The futuristic approach and the approach to thrival, it's very well known that at all times of recession, the companies which chose to turn themselves up and be beyond what they had imagined, raise their targets, they were the ones who were the winners in the long term.
Subodha Rai and Agarwal, did the stimulus package really end up helping business? Did it help a particular sector, a particular segment such as MSME?
Sorry, I didn't understand. I did not hear your question.
Agarwal. That question is for Mr. Agarwal. Yeah, Mr. Agarwal, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're talking about India, or you're talking about US, Europe, where?
India in particular.
India, to be honest, has had no real stimulus. I should not be saying so. It's not even 1% of what should have been really done. If you look at the Western world, they have done real stimuluses. And even after that, if you see the problems in economy, for example, in US, they have given trillions of dollars in stimulus. Even a few days back, there was a report which said 31 companies with assets worth more than $1 billion have filed for bankruptcy. Now, India, there has been, if you can, I do not know of any one single real stimulus in India. We have businesses in India also. I have, I think, about 14, 15 countries where we have majority stakes in India. We have not seen any benefit in India. Like Sharad was saying earlier, even the banking support is so bad. He was explaining he was being very kind and nice in explaining it. And he said, even the 10% of his revenue he can't get from a bank. Unfortunately, the Indian system of banking was, if you are already got, let's say, a 100 crore loan, you can get additional X amount. But what about companies which didn't have that kind of loans or which didn't need? So if you are a very good company, call it a strong company, and you are debt free and you need money today to survive and grow, you can't get it. So the kind of stimuluses leave a lot to be desired in India, sadly.
Subodhji, you're right in your assessment that the government can do more. But let me tell you, on our show, we would have about 300 entrepreneurs over the last 3 months. At least 8 or 10 of them have actually received the economic stimulus. You may say that's low, which it is, but the fact is there are entrepreneurs that have received it. I heard it from them. But let me ask.
So maybe I'm wrong. Instead of saying 1%, I should have said 3%.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm just saying is, what do you think the government can do now? What would be? We are not like UK, where there's been a direct transfer to employees from the exchequer. We're not like Canada. We're not like the US. We have to live within our means. So what is your advice to policy workers who are watching this session?
You see, even for them, they have to take some leads from the Western world. It's not, UK budget is in deficit now. They're still going around doing deficit. Tell me, if somebody's company is not producing goods, I will ask you a counter question, and I will try to answer it also at the same time. If you have a business which is not generating revenue, you're not doing proper production because your workers have gone back to their home, and they have to be sustaining money, they need to be paid money, or if your factory is closed or your business office is closed, how do you pay salaries? There is a cash flow issue. The banks have to come and support it. Of course, I agree there would be some frauds, some wrong people who will do it, but for few percentage of fraud, rest of the people needs to be supported. And similarly, and which is very important, because if the companies don't survive, how is the growth going on? Even when the economy starts becoming normal, you need to have these businesses supporting the economy. These same workers working into the companies. So government has to work out a better banking system. They have to work out some direct stimuluses for the lower end, which is very important. Okay. By 2, 3, 4, 5%, even if you are supporting 10% of the entrepreneurs, that's not enough.
Okay.
You need to be able to support to 80% of entrepreneurs.
Sharad, your venture and of course your sector does rely a lot on consumer spending, which has taken a huge hit. When do you really believe that will pick up? When will customers, consumers begin spending the way they were in pre-COVID levels? Diwali, earlier, later? When do you really see consumer spending returning back?
I think, interesting question. Honestly speaking, what this situation has done is to move a smartphone or even a feature phone. Just for numbers' sake, the feature phone sale in India is still higher than, in terms of the number of devices, a feature phone sale in India is still higher than a smartphone, right? One data point which I am going to, explain. Another is that the smartphone has moved from, as I said earlier, from a discretionary spend to a mandatory spend, right? So that particular demand has been contracted where, I already have a 20,000 phone, say 20,000 rupees worth of phone, and I want an upgrade, right? So those are the kind of non-essential spend which has been, been hit. What has taken off is this 10,000 or 8,000 or 6,000 worth of smartphones, because now instead of 2 smartphones per home, you need 4 to 5 smartphones, because all your kids and digital education, you need different devices for each one of them. So in overall terms, there has been a contraction of demand on the higher side of this segment, and there has been an expansion of demand on the lower side of it. And that's where we are going aggressive. And of course, you rightly said, will there be that demand is going to sustain? Well, of course not for a year, but will the demand be enough to keep say companies like us floated? Yes, for 6 months we continue this. We believe that this will continue. So in that sense, I think again, as I said, we are playing lucky. There's no other way to define that. And but then the demand has been fluctuating very heavily month on month, and we just need to, as it was told by Dr. Batra itself, that just control the cost, and we are just doing that. We are just keeping a tab on our cost. We are operationally profitable, and that's what we are just trying to survive, being under the table, the way. In an earthquake.
Becoming profitable, nobody would talk of profitability. Everybody would talk of valuation. They would talk of GMVs. They would talk of Series A, Series B, Series D. They wouldn't talk about real profitability. So COVID has brought back basics to the fore. Petal, let me get you in. When you talk to your clients who are across sectors, healthcare, media, technology, infrastructure, what is the kind of sense you get by talking to them? How are they seeing the future?
So yes, like you said, we have varied fields of clients, who we cater to, and the best part is that most of them have disputes going on because we have a significant amount of healthcare clients, hospitals, chains, clinics. They have been on the run throughout this time.
Yeah, so, I mean, me and Uday were discussing the offshore loss to the healthcare industry, of the organized healthcare industry, yes, is about $2.5 billion. And if you take the neighborhood clinics, the GPs, then it's possibly another $500 million, so $3 billion,
yes,
taken away from the healthcare domain because the normal surgeries haven't happened. Yes. Patients have a fear of showing up in the hospital or to the clinic. So you're absolutely right.
And even the COVID treatments have been capped by the government. I mean, even if I, as a patient want to go and seek a certain kind of treatment, I'm not given that because the government has capped the treatment to a certain extent, and they are saying, no, you're not going to pay beyond that. So even though I may want a single room in a hospital, I will not be entitled to it unless, I give declarations and I tell them that, okay, nothing will happen to the hospital if I take that. So yes, there have been concerns from the healthcare industry. There have been concerns from the media industry, where even in fact the media clients that we have, they also felt that there were no advertisements on television. There was nothing. even though we felt that was a little strange because everybody is watching television, they're home.
The viewership is up, advertising isn't. And I keep saying on NewsX, in good times, one should advertise. In bad times, one must advertise.
Yes,
but I don't think, people are holding back. The advertising is starting to come back in September. But April, May, June was almost 10-20%. July, August was 30%. And now we've got to a 60-70% stage in some genres. You can't say all over the advertising back by 70-80%. But yes, the brands have gone on a pause. And because of IPL and Diwali, some of them are coming back. But will that sustain beyond that is a $1 trillion question. Yeah. Let me bring in Mehak. Mehak, in your sphere of work, what is the sense you get when you work with individuals, companies? How do they see the future?
There is a lot of contraction at entry point, and entry point means, I would say, when they are coming brand new to us. But we have an old clientele which is there with us since past few years, and each of them has come back and shown gratitude for choosing work with us, choosing to imbibe our values and all. They are seeing themselves as way more equipped than the general people. They are seeing themselves at forefront, being able to handle their lives, the fears, the anxieties, and all those apprehensions that people have. And even new people, I mean, I have not seen a slack. I have seen a huge growth in my business right from April, May, June, and increasingly better and better. Because people have now begun to see value for their mental well-being, their emotional well-being. As Sharad clearly said, the shift has come, like instead of 20,000, people are buying 10,000, because now they are looking at what is the value that we are getting from it. They have started noticing the value of the inner well-being, because that's what is, actually being reflected outside. If you have a person who's working with you who is emotionally strong, balanced, can give you more productivity outside. And that's what is most important. These are called times of when we have to have a particular type of balance within us. When there is emergency, how do you handle situations? And this is a sort of economic emergency where we don't know.
For the first time, mental health, well-being has become an important offering for which corporates and individuals are willing to pay. That's what I make of what you say. Subodh, let me ask you two pointed questions. One, which are the sectors today we are talking in the backdrop of the KV Kamath report that looks at 26 sectors and how to revive them. And it doesn't take a cookie cutter approach. It does look at each sector with its strengths and the support where is needed. So what are the areas that you would bet on as an investor? Second question is, if I talk to you 1 year from now, what would have BioCube achieved?
Both very difficult questions, but let me try to answer in a simpler manner. As in today, I would only believe in digital and healthcare. Nothing else. Because these are the two sectors where you can't go wrong. I'm talking as an investor.
But despite healthcare losses as well, as pointed out by Dr. Batra.
Yes. But those losses, if you will go deeper into the analysis, as we have been studying them, have been primarily because of not the right management structures into the place. But if you do healthcare, and when I say healthcare, it doesn't mean you start doing everything. When you become specialized, it's a very good sector. Even in digital world, even in technology, not everything is good. But there are some fantastic things. We have an example of a company like Nikola, where they don't even have a product, they just have a design and they're already valued at $16 billion. Now, can every company become that? The answer is no. So it's very subjective. And I think that was my answer to the first one. To the BioCube, where we see, it depends again on the situation, when we are able to launch it fully. You see, BioCube is a product which is the first product of its kind in the world. There is no other product like what we have developed. It is the first multimodal biometrics backed by artificial intelligence app on mobile without any hardware. There's nothing like that exists in the world today. And it's very essential for all kind of government and large corporation supports. The issue is when we will be able to market. So Anurag, to answer your question more honestly, let's assume this pandemic reduces by November, December, as we all hope, and we are able to launch it, then it should be one of the most critical government support security product in the world, probably in 1 year after that.
Fantastic. That's a good goal to have. Petal, let me bring you in.
I have another pointed question actually for Subodhanaran Agarwal. You asked two, I'm going to ask a third because he was, of course, quite frank in his opinion on the stimulus package. In your view then, Mr. Agarwal, given the situation our economy is, what's the pill that needs to be prescribed by the doctor, since we are talking about in healthcare terms, to revive it, and what all needs to be that pill?
Sorry, Anurag, I couldn't hear you.
I was just pulling Uday's leg. That which doctor are you referring to?
Yes.
Okay. Who's the doctor?
As Mehak and the other panelists talk, these days you have to be your own doctor. You have to look after your own immunity. You have to do the walk. You have to eat less. You have to do pranayama.
No, that's a valid point.
You don't expect others from others. I know you're talking about the doctor.
Should the doctor be the founder himself? Should the doctor be someone else? Who should the doctor be who's prescribing this pill? What's the pill to ail the Indian economy? And what are the ingredients in this pill, sir?
You see, as every doctor will tell you, no doctor can do their own treatment. So Indian doctors really need a little different view, a outside help to give this right pill. Number one. Two, you see, in a certain way, if you look at just at India's history, I think what the current pill has been done is fantastic. But if you do it with a global comparison, then what has been done is terrible. Now, I'm looking at it from a global perspective, and the country needs to stop worrying about inflation and other things and stop working.
Credit rating. We should
I didn't want to say so.
Not worry about what the rating agencies have to say, sensitize them.
And correct, absolutely, and just go all out. It is not one pill. It will have to be a combination of multiple pills. It's not just that the vitamin D is enough. You need vitamin A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, everything, because that's the current situation of the economy is.
Absolutely, Subodh, you're right. It needs spending from the government. Maybe we need to print more currency. Most importantly, for our entrepreneurs, we have to bring down the cost of capital. We have to make it single window. And dare I say, if we really want to be Atmanirbhar, nobody gives credit to our Prime Minister. He's seeding a thought. The benefits of that may happen over 6 months, 12 months, 5 years. But at the end of the day, that thought is important that we can do it. Timelines need to be individual and collective consciousness needs to rise to it. Better, let me ask you my last question in this segment. The definition of what is force majeure is pretty standard in law. It's written in black and white. Do you see this pandemic giving shades of gray to that black and white? Especially when the definition of force majeure comes into play.
Is this question to me or Parul?
To Petal, and then
to Petal, sorry.
Of course we can get you to answer that.
Yeah.
So,
that's better answer.
Yes, the force majeure has been the talk of all courts, I think. And initially, earlier, before this pandemic, nobody ever looked at that clause. It was one of the miscellaneous clauses which was just there, and nobody even bothered to read it, probably. But now, yes, the interpretation of force majeure has been done with a lot of thought, with a lot of thinking, and with a lot of interpretations, if I may say. And so much so that the courts have, made it very clear that force majeure in general won't be applicable to everybody. It will depend on what is there in your contract, what is there that you've specifically agreed to. So yes, a lot of interpretations of this clause has come into play. And some of the contracts that I have gone through and in favor of my client, we have specifically had in the past mentioned about, payment obligations and things like that, which today is proving to be very favorable for them. So some things like that has really been very, very favorable. However, multiple interpretations have come into play, have come before the courts. And what I have understood is that the court is taking a very specific, take on each clause. It's not going by a standard blanket understanding of force majeure, but they are going specifically as per the contract and as per the specific clauses that are there.
Thank you so much, Petal. Subodhji, as an entrepreneur, do you have a take on what force majeure means in these times?
I think everything is force majeure in these times. These are very unique times.
I hope you're not referring these to relationships and only commercial contracts, but that's an offline conversation. Let me ask my last question before we end, and Uday, please stop me wherever you want to. I want a candid view from all of you. Let me start with Sharad. When do you see the economy will be back fully? 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, longer, and why? Please explain your answer.
Okay. Again, very, very, macroeconomic question, and I am not even sure that I would like to, but still.
But you look at sales numbers, you look at trends. The beauty about e-commerce is you can look at who's buying what. You can figure out sentiment from the trends. You can see an uptake.
Okay.
You can see slowing down of purchases. So data never lies. It gives you a trend.
So your question is specific to the business we are in, is that?
So you can use that as a extrapolation for a larger. As you said, you are not detached from the overall economy in your own analysis.
Correct.
If the economy does well, you will do well. That's a given. And for the first time, there we realize that we are all connected. If something happens elsewhere, it impacts me, it impacts you. We're not disconnected. So clearly, yes, how the economy does will impact your sales.
Yeah, so I think we are definitely looking at no less than 12 to 18 months from now, as far as the overall so-called bounce back. What Mehak said, that is there a need for bounce back or not? But then let's go classical here. So in that sense, we believe that we are still 12 to 18 months away. Now this question has got lots of ifs and buts and assumptions.
Revival? Is there a complete revival you're talking about? That kind of
I would,
or is it even some sort of positive signs?
Well, I would like to be hopeful at this stage, because we are still a young nation. We're still an entrepreneurial nation. E-commerce, digital is our sweet spot. The way, so as I used to say that there was a before Christ and after Christ. Likewise, there is a before COVID and after COVID worlds. Those are going to look very, very different than what we can even imagine at this stage. But I believe, I'm hopeful, and I would err on the side of being optimist. So yeah, I mean 12 to 18 months, it will be a different world, but then I'm sure that we'll bounce back. As far as what we are doing is concerned, we are looking at anywhere between 3x growth in next 12 months, 3 to 4x. Even if the government doesn't lend us.
Okay, Sharad, that's being cautiously optimistic and literally being Atmanirbhar. Petal, your view on when do you see economy being back in full bloom? 12 months, 6 months, 18 months. What's your take?
So I'm also very optimistic, Mr. Batra, and I feel that agriculture, being one of the most important sectors of our country, is the silver lining right now. We have seen a growth in agriculture since April to, I think, July, which was the latest report. And even otherwise, Sharad also said, we are a young population. The population is such, I think we are building on resilience in our lives. And through this pandemic, I think the nation will really bounce back. And I don't see a reason why we will not be, someone who will prove to be a nation.
I buy that. Indians are inherently very resilient.
Yes.
We find we're very creative. and we believe in a higher power. So
Yes, and our
we're always
fertility rate is
optimistic.
only, I think it's the lowest in the world. It's just 1.5 or 7%. So if you look at those aspects, and if you look at even the GDP that is there in the news these days, we see that the GDP has really, gone down, but it's actually the lowest. I mean, in the sense that the developed bigger nations are much, ahead of us. They have, I think, their GDP has decreased much more than us. So just being optimistic, and I feel that through this pandemic, through this situation that we are in, a challenging time, I think we are building resilience, and we will definitely bounce back. The timeline that we are looking at is, like Sharad said, if we are in the fourth stage of, we are in the third stage, I think, of testing of a vaccine. I see that coming maybe in a couple of months in the market, and once it is out there, maybe the government is able to provide that to the population at large. And if that happens, I see around 12 to 18 months also as somewhere where we will be able to completely come out of this situation and bounce back and be an example, probably. Yeah.
Thank you, Petal. Mehak Hemnani, when do you think the economy will be back? When will we be mentally well, fully, and happy as a nation, as a community? Mehak?
Yes, there are so many people who are working towards the mental well-being, and with the importance that is being given to it, I don't think it's far. And people are actually choosing to mutate into a better version of themselves. So what actions can we take constantly to reinvent and mutate into, a better version, a better species? And it's not far. I don't see that really far.
But let me play contrarian and play devil's advocate. Mehak, we are prisoners to our habits. The day we feel that, COVID is gone, we'll be back to our habits.
Yes.
So it says it takes 21 days to form a habit. Because we like human connection. We like meeting. And dare I say, Indians have two things. They're disciplined in a lot of ways, but they can be more disciplined in many areas. And for the amount of, we have so much opinion about everything without doing anything about it, right? So I'm not sure. It's good to be optimistic, but I keep saying hope is not a plan.
True.
I don't know what is the plan to get there.
Let's give the last word to Subodh Narayan Agarwal. Now we're running out of time.
Sorry.
So let's give the last word to Subodh Narayan Agarwal on, of course, the last segment, the last question that Dr. Batra asked. When you really see hopes of revival coming in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, sooner, later, and why?
Or even longer, I don't know.
I think it's going to be longer.
Okay.
Because the effect which will really be visible will not be now. It will be 6 months after pandemic is over that we will really realize the hit to the extent economy has taken. And of course, the recovery will start. The government support would be there. And Indians are, as you know, are great entrepreneurs and resilient, very well put by Anurag ji. But it will take at least 2 to 3 years more to get into the shape.
Okay.
But will it happen? Yes, for sure.
Okay, I think Mehak, you wanted to add something very quickly, so I'll give you 20 seconds. Yeah.
One of the things is there is a habit development timeline in individuals. And because of the lockdown and the huge shift in behavioral aspects of every individual, what we were to achieve in habitual, personal habitual relationships with people, with ourselves, that we have been able to do in a much shorter period of time.
Yeah.
And anything that we hold on to for a year becomes our new habit.
Okay.
So I don't think it's far.
Okay.
Very soon, back and
out of time. My thanks to all of our panelists for joining us on this particular episode of the NewsX Business World Panels on the Indian economy. Thanks all of you, and thanks to Dr. Batra as well.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.